But that's where my Paleo Hebrew books come into play to help you out in understanding it. And I still have to do the vocabulary work. Too much stuff came up that took me away from doing the vocabulary portion. Yeah, once you understand the alphabet, you can then figure out the vocabulary yourself. And so the restoration that is supposed to happen is of the 18th dynasty, a restoration of the Egyptians, the Egyptian government, the Egyptian religion, and specifically the 18th dynasty, with Yah as the original name of God, which the 18th dynasty had the Amun priesthood. And Hatshepsut has a fun little pre-mortality story to justify herself as being the queen of Egypt. And the Amun priesthood had to approve it. And so when you have the Book of Mormon talking about a guy named Samuel the Lamanite, not Samuel the Nephite. Remember, the last days Messiah comes through Set to win, not through Osiris, even though he's the son of Osiris. That's significant, because it's the Samuel the Lamanite who says, hey, there's going to be signs in the heavens about the coming of the last days Messiah. And then Nephi, which is a symbol name, because the first Nephi is the son of Lehi, who restores the kingdom on the promised land, just like Joshua. And so Nephi is a symbol of the last days Messiah as well. And coincidentally, it's with the Babylonian captivity as the original story. And then you have Nephi being scolded by the last days Messiah, Jesus, for not having the records of Samuel the Lamanite. And so you have three characters with one story, where all three characters are actually one character in and of themselves. They're all types and symbols of the last days Messiah, who will warn the people of the signs in the heavens. And I've published all the books on those. And that's what kept me from doing my vocabulary for Paleo Hebrew, was the signs, because sure enough, we had the sun darkening on the 21st of August 2017, and 7 years later we're going to have another one over America, crossing over Little Egypt in southern Illinois. The first one passed over Adamon-Diamond and Independence, Missouri. The other one will cross over Kirtland, Ohio, and the farm of the Smiths. And so that's interesting placement. Whereas Little Italy is known for the cave where it's rumored that there are buried Egyptian plates by the Knights Templar, which is where the Smiths got the idea of Egyptian from. And so when you hear the stories of Joseph talking about, oh yeah, I had a vision in which I saw a cave, and in this cave were all sorts of Egyptian records, and him being a treasure hunter, treasure seeker, again, that's all because of the Knights Templar. It's not because of magic and witchcraft, as certain critic scholars are trying to present to the minds of the people to scare them away from Mormonism. No, the Smiths were not into magic and witchcraft. Even their Holiness to the Lord parchment was astronomical and Hebrew, which was why they had the interest in it. And so on the 27th of December, or September, 21st of September 1827, when Joseph supposedly gets the plates, there was a sign in the heavens similar to Revelation 12, but not quite. Two planets were out of place. And but clearly they knew of astronomy and the signs from the Bible about astronomy. And so, yes, that's why the first book in Book of Mormon, Nephi has his dream, and then talks about John the Revelator will write a book about the last days. And so we, as the readers in current time, are supposed to go, oh, okay, I need to read John's Revelation to find out about the last days. Chapter 12. And chapter 13 is all about Trump and the number of the beast on the forehead, MAGA, the MAGA hats, and 666 being the gematria of image of shofar, the shofar horn. Trump, shofar horn. And the image is the one that speaks on TV spouting blasphemies. And so yes, he's getting impeached for that very thing of which was prophesied in the Book of Mormon, or the Book of Revelation. And the Book of Mormon does talk about a last days king as well, and they call him Jacob, usurper. He's the kingman who placed him on the throne of the divided United States that destroyed the Constitution. So, thus Joseph Smith said that the Constitution will hang by a thread and the elders of Israel will rise up and save it. Unfortunately, Brigham Young is the destroyer of America, established his kingdom in Mexico, as America then followed to have the war in Mexico to make it the territory of the United States, before Utah eventually became a state in the nation after the Mormons pretended to do away with polygamy. And so that's the Jesus that Joseph Smith was presenting to the Mormons. Obviously, he couldn't come right out and say Jesus of the Gospels is mistranslated, and so he had to do it in other ways. So Article of Faith number 8, we believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it is translated correctly. In the Book of Mormon, the Great and Abominable Church takes away the plain and precious parts of the Bible. And so, yes, the nature and character of God is taken away and mixed up and caused a stumbling block to the people, because everybody believes that Jesus is a historical figure from around 1 AD and 33 AD, and that's a stumbling block for people, because that's not true. It's Osiris who was the one who was murdered, and it's a prophecy of the last days Messiah. And so John the Revelator talks about a child who is born of a woman, who will come on the 23rd of September 2017. That's the sign according to the planet locations that John gives. And then you have Isaiah, unto us a child is given, unto us and government shall be upon his shoulders, and beautiful song that ensues. Jesus died. The government was not upon his shoulders, and so they have the sign on his cross, here lies the King of the Jews, as a mockery. And that's the whole point, is Christians got deceived by Constantine, who said, okay, this Osiris character is going to be merged with Horus, and they're going to be called Jesus, Joshua, because it's paternistic of the Joshua of the book of Joshua, who sends the people to the promised land. It's a symbol of heavenly promised land rather than earthly, because Constantine is the earthly Messiah, and all of the designations for Jesus, the Jerusalem, where he was hung on Golgotha, buried in the garden tomb, the place where Jesus walked, all of that were designated by Constantine. And thus the scriptures in the New Testament were written to help promote what Constantine was pushing. Whereas you see John the Revelator talking about Jesus being crucified in Egypt. And you have even the Gospels trying to harmonize the Egyptian origins with Constantine's alterations by talking about King Herod wanting to kill the babies, and so Joseph takes his family to Egypt, and then they say, out of Egypt is my son. That's the prophecy they're trying to justify here, but no, it's not Jerusalem, because Bethlehem is the woman. It's the one star. If you've seen the movie Zeitgeist, they call it the whole constellation. It's actually the star, the left hand at the southern end of the constellation. And so that's referring to the 23rd of September 2017 that John talks of, is what the Gospels refer to as being born out of Bethlehem. But the Egyptian origins is he was born in Egypt. But symbolically, you have to go to the book of Ezekiel, because Ezekiel tells the actual birthplace. Because remember, the sun darkening and the moon turning to blood is identified as America now. We now know that that's the case, because on the 21st of August 2017, that total solar eclipse was the day of the Egyptian religious New Year. That was designated by the Egyptians many millennia. That's from the origin of Egyptian that we don't know the actual origins of. And it was just my jaw dropped when I saw that date. And yeah, that's why I was so into publishing books about all of the signs of the Bible during that time period. And of course Mormons said, "Oh, it's evil, you can't do that. No, we're waiting for the prophet to tell us when the signs have been confirmed. And Hinckley already said they've all been fulfilled," from that one conference he gave, which was not correct. They hadn't been fulfilled. And so, again, Mormons, you're trusting in people who don't know God, who don't speak for God because they're not following God. And the Book of Mormon is not the source of truth for Mormons anymore, because the prophets have elevated themselves up as the source of truth. Benson's 17 characteristics of a prophet, which was Elder Benson, not Prophet Benson. And so Ezekiel tells exactly where the last days Messiah will be born. He calls him the twig rather than the branch, because as a baby it's a twig. The branch, as Isaiah and Jeremiah talks of, that's him as an adult, an adult branch. And a branch and a twig come from the stem, who is Osiris, Jesus, whichever name you want to give him, as long as you separate the characters.